And here we have Sonic Heroes, which initially released in 2003. This was actually one of the first Sonic the Hedgehog experiences I ever had, and all these years later, I still think the game is pretty decent. It definitely has some issues, but I still find it relatively enjoyable, at least on the GameCube. When it comes to the story, it's about 4 different trios of Sonic characters taking on Eggman. There's Team Sonic, which is Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Team Dark, which has Shadow, Newcomer, Omega, and Rouge the Bat. Team Rose, which has Amy, Big the Cat, and Cream the Rabbit, and then Team Chaotix, which has Espio the Chameleon, Vector the Crocodile, and Charmy Bee. And looking back, I gotta say it's pretty cool that they actually brought the Chaotix characters back from the Forgotten 32X game. And their setup actually isn't about them trying to take on Eggman, it's about doing these odd jobs for this mysterious person on a walkie-talkie as they try to get some money, honey. Yeah, when it comes to this game's story, it's pretty simple. It's nowhere near as complex as Adventure 1 and 2, and honestly, that's fine. It's just a lighthearted, good old time. And speaking of lighthearted, we have the presentation. Okay, that maybe wasn't the smoothest transition, but I do want to bring up this game's presentation. I love how Sonic Heroes looks all these years later. It's a good looking game from this era, and it really is like how I imagine a 3D Sonic game looking. It's incredibly colorful, like all of the bright colors just pop, all of the zones look incredibly different from each other, there's so much charm and personality. The character models and animation is pretty decent, and the frame rate was very smooth throughout. The music is also fantastic in Sonic Heroes. This has some of the best music of any 3D Sonic game. It's really good stuff. So all that is well and good, but let's actually talk about the game side of the video game. When it comes to playing Sonic Heroes, it is a 3D platformer, but it's got a unique twist on it. Since you are playing as trios the entire time, you can switch between any of the 3 characters, and each one of them falls into a certain archetype. There's your speed characters, who move the fastest, have a homing attack, and a not spin dash. You have your power characters, who are still decently fast, but they have all these combos and attacks, and there is a decent amount of combat in this game. And then you have your flying characters, which are the slowest characters, but yeah, they can fly for a limited amount of time. And you can even kick your other team members and use them as projectile weapons. I'm sure that feels just great. And to get through these levels, you'll have to use all 3 of these character types, and oftentimes you'll get diverging paths depending on which character you're playing as. But that's not the case for every single level. When it comes to the level design, it's pretty typical 3D Sonic, where it's a very linear experience, where you get to actually go really fast, you fight enemies, there's different paths you can take, and there's a bunch of little gimmicks and set pieces for really every single level. This game does have quite a bit more combat than any other 3D Sonic game since enemies are rockin' health bars, but the power characters can really bring the heat and you can actually do some serious damage with all of them. But I gotta say, when it comes to the general level design of Sonic Heroes, I think it's actually pretty good for the most part. A majority of these levels not only feel really different from each other, but they're just well designed. I like how many different paths there are. I like that for the most part you actually do get to go pretty fast, the combat isn't too annoying, and there's plenty of memorable moments, set pieces, and gimmicks thrown in here. Like, this game has some really genuinely good levels to it, and the boss fights aren't bad either. Most of them are okay. When you fight the other teams, it's not so great, but outside of those, I think the boss fights are actually good here. So then why isn't Sonic Heroes way higher on the list if I think it's actually a really good game? Well, it's not all great. Even as someone with a ton of nostalgia for this game, I can see that, yeah, it's got some issues. The controls in this game just aren't all that great. They're super, and I mean super slippery. You just fly all over the place whenever you're playing as a speed or power character. Like, the controls at times just feel hypersensitive, and I have flown off the side of a stage way too many times thanks to these just slippery controls. And it can really mess with the feel of this entire game. Like, even at its very best, the controls and feel are just okay. And they take a long time to get used to, but the control issues don't end there. I'll just immediately bring it up. The pinball physics are fucking terrible in Sonic Heroes. Like, what the fuck happened here? These are like the worst pinball physics of any Sonic game. And it just drags the casino levels down the shitter into the pipes. Like, the casino levels just straight up suck. And then the grinding, like, what happened here? The grinding should be great in this game. Rail Canyon should be an amazing level, but the grinding is crazy unresponsive. Half the time when you switch over to the next rail, you just fly off the side. And there really is no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes you're able to just jump on over to the rail next to you. Other times, yeah, you fly off and die. And so a lot of the time you end up just being the flying character just in case you do fly fly off the side and you can actually recover. And then don't get me started on the controls in these special stages. These are some of the worst special stages of any Sonic game. They control like utter bird shit, and you need all of the emeralds to get the final story segment. And speaking of getting the final story segment, let's talk about the game's pacing and progression. And if you don't get the emerald in the first like 30 seconds, just give up. You're never gonna get it. Kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to issues with Sonic Heroes. This game expects you to play through it 4 times in order to get the final story segment. You gotta play through it as all 4 of the teams, and the teams don't have unique levels or boss fights. There are 14 levels, and these 14 levels are the same for every single team. The only difference is where the goal ring is. Outside of Team Chaotix, where you actually have to collect stuff. More on them in just a second. When you play as Team Sonic, the goal ring is like 75 or 80% through the level. It's considered the normal difficulty. When you play as Team Dark, the goal ring is at the very end of the level, so you gotta play through everything. And when you play as Team Rose, the goal ring is at like the 50% mark. When you play as Team Chaotix though, yeah, you gotta find collectibles in these levels, and that can either take a few minutes or a long ass time. But either way, you gotta go through these levels 4 times. It doesn't matter how good these levels are, having to play through the exact same levels 4 times is just not very good. In a few different aspects, it absolutely wrecks the pacing. It makes the game feel incredibly repetitive, actually rather quickly, and it just makes the gameplay feel rather stale. The game overstays its welcome because you gotta play through it so many different times. It's like they're really just stretching the game out as long as they possibly could. When you play through the game once, you know, likely as Team Sonic, I think it's a great experience. The pacing's actually really great, all of the levels feel very different, and the level design is good. But playing through it 3 more times and then Team Chaotix bullshit, yeah, the game just becomes an absolute slog. And even though I like most of the levels, I do have beef with some of them. I already brought up the pinball level, and Rail Canyon unfortunately isn't very good, but the other one I want to highlight is the Haunted Mansion. I fucking hate this level. As a kid, I wanted to rip my hair out every time I got to this level, and as an adult, yeah, this shit sucks, especially when you have to use the light speed dash, which is just kind of unreliable. But I've been going off about this game for well over 6 or 7 minutes at this point, so I'm going to wrap things up. Sonic Heroes is a good game. Sonic Heroes has a lot of aspects that are actually really great, but it's bogged down by the fact that you have to play through it 4 times if you want the real ending, and the controls being kind of all over the place. If you want the best experience, in my opinion, boot up the game, play through it as Team Sonic, and then just stop right there. I think the more you play this game, the worse and worse it gets, and the issues start piling up and becoming much more prevalent and annoying. Despite all of this, I still recommend the game, and listening to its music, I think anybody that likes 3D platformers will find something to enjoy with this one.